Okay, great. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode on the Tuesday Talks. And in this session, we're going to have a look at some of the digital marketing jargons that exist. A lot of people keep getting confused whether it's marketers, whether it is someone who is new and wants to basically get started, somebody who is, let's say, you are a business owner and you've always been confused about the number of jargons that exist in the digital marketing space. Now, ideally they exist is also because it's one of the spaces where you can actually see real-time feedback, real-time results, right? So most of this is very simple when it comes to, let's say, you do a print campaign and you look at the sales and then you're like, okay, what's my ROI when I do a print campaign? You've done a print campaign and you immediately see if there's a rise in sale or no. That's It's as simple as that. So but when it comes to digital, what happens is that a majority of all of these elements actually end up going into, like, you can actually minutely try to figure out what is your audience doing. So maybe there are things like, okay, you want them to engage, right? Or maybe you want them to, let's say come to your website, or maybe you want them to convert, right? So, and these are the various different ways or different combinations that you can actually try. And what you want to do this time is you want to measure the action or the cost of actually getting someone to do that. And that's what most of these jargons are about. Okay, so that's what I'm going to let's dive into it so that I can give you a gist of it and you can understand this better. So let's look at this. I'm shifting onto my browser, and there you can see my browser right now. Well, let's look at the first one. The first one is a key thing. It's something that this is basically the core for anyone who is actually looking at trying to drive sales. So that's basically a factor for sales. You're looking at cost per acquisition. So this is cost per acquisition, which means what is the amount that you had to spend in order to actually acquire someone, in the format of, that person made a purchase or that person made a transaction. So that's cost per acquisition. Let's look at the next one. It's CPC, and this is usually used when it comes to digital marketing advertising terms. So this one is cost per clicks, which means that what is the cost for getting a person to click on an ad, right? So that's basically cost per click. Let's look at the next one. This one is going to do with cost per lead. Okay, cost per lead as in how much, what did it cost for us to basically get a single lead, get a single person to actually come down to our website and fill a form. Or maybe, like, let's say if you're running ads on, or running cost per lead ads on Facebook, then what did it take for a person to actually fill the form? What was the cost per lead to actually get data of the consumer to you, right? So that's cost per lead. Let's look at CPE. What is CPE? This is basically cost per engagement. So let's say you're doing boost posts on Facebook, and the goal over here is how do I get someone to engage with our brand? That's where cost per engagement comes in, right? So this is the cost that you put in to actually make sure that there are people who are engaging with you, so that you connect with the relevant people, so that you can try to connect with them and engage with them. What is CPR? Now, CPR is actually supposed to be a term that is used on Facebook, and this is ideally used on Facebook because Facebook, when you run ads, you have multiple objectives. You've got different types of objectives. You've got objectives for trying to drive leads. You've got objectives for trying to drive clicks. You've got objectives for trying to drive, let's say, landing page views. Yeah, let me add that as well, because this is something that's unique to Facebook. So you've got landing page views, you've got cost per acquisition. So what happens is, when it comes to Facebook just uses one single term, and it says, okay, this is CPR. CPR stands for cost per result. Okay, so this is cost per result. All right. Then there are other costs, like you can say cost per S, which is cost per session. Now, cost per session basically means that what is the cost for you that you have spent to actually get a person from outside onto your website. so that he's actually browsing my site. So that is where cost per session comes in. And then you have landing page views, or you also put a cost to it, and say cost per landing page view, or they call it LPV, right? So now I'll tell you the difference between LPV versus a cost per click. This is usually the objective differences that you have. You can either optimize your campaign for a cost per click, or you can optimize your campaign for a cost per landing page view. Now the difference here is that when you look at optimizing towards cost per landing page view, it means that you are no longer optimizing your traffic to actually get clicks, but you're actually optimizing them to make sure that the person clicks on those ads and actually visits the website and, and actually spends time there, right? So you're actually and this is the Facebook variation of it. So this does not exist on Google yet. This is something that's new. When I say new, it's been there for at least 2 to 3 years now. So it's landing page views, and this is not something yet integrated by most platforms. So that's cost per landing page view. So you can say it's LPV, or it's landing page view. Basically, what it means is that the person has to not only click now, that person has to be optimized to actually come and visit the website. Only then it's basically counted as a landing page view. All right, what is CPM? Now CPM, just like CPC, is a very largely used term. I mean, everybody uses it. Now CPM, the M over here is actually a Roman numeral. So the M stands for 1,000. So when you look at CPM, it's not cost per impression. So cost per impression is here, which is CPI. Okay, so this is cost per impression, right? And what you see as CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions. That's what it actually means. So how much did it cost for you to reach 1,000 people, right? So that's basically why what CPM actually stands for. But the reason why this is CPM, and why we generally don't use CPI, is because when you look at CPI, the cost can be like, it's sometimes in fractions, right? Sometimes it can be like 0.005 or 0.002. So at that point of time, it becomes very difficult, and that's the reason why people look at, okay, let's not look at CPI to get to cost to reach one person. Let's look at 1,000 people at a time. So sometimes, in most cases, CPMs range typically between a 28-30 rupees, and these are CPMs, which means that's the cost for reaching 1,000 people is 28 rupees, or cost for reaching 1,000 people is 10 rupees. So that's basically how it goes. It varies based on that. Now, what is ROAS, right? So ROAS is an interesting term. There are other terms, like you can see frequency is another term here. So if I basically get more terms during the course of this video, I will keep adding them, so that it's more like this particular video consists of all of these terms. So what is ROAS? Now ROAS basically means return on average spend, and what this or return on ad spend. What this means is that you're looking at, let's say I spent 10 rupees, okay, and if my ROAS is 10, okay, this means that I have earned back. So if I basically spend 10 rupees, I have earned back 1,000 rupees. I've earned back 100 rupees. So that's basically what it means. The figure is 10 times of what the cost is, right? So let's say my return is 5 times, right? So if I spend 10, then I should have received rupees 50 back, which means my return on ad spend is 5 times. So typically, from what I've seen, usually it is 2 times to 6 times. But in rare cases, when I've run campaigns in the past, we've also hit like 10 to even to an extent of 15, but not 25, even to an extent of 15. But generally what happens is that this is like, let's say you spend 10 rupees and you end up basically getting 100 bucks back. But it varies, right? It depends on what kind of product were you selling and what kind of product was actually bought. It's very different. It's different here in terms of how things work. It's also based on how big your website is and what you're actually selling. But what it actually means that, let's say you spend 500 bucks, and if your If your ROAS is 10, it means that you've actually got a return on that particular 500 bucks at 5,000. All right, so you spend 500 bucks to get in your ads, and your conversion was such that you got a return of 5,000. So that's what it generally means. That's typically the range. Frequency. So what does frequency mean? Now frequency basically stands for the time, or the number of times a person is actually exposed to an ad. So let's say you want to make sure that a single person, let's say your customer, gets this particular ad that you have created right now at least 3 times in a week. And you can control that. So you will be able to be in a position to control how many times a particular ad is exposed to a particular person, uh, whether it's based on behavior or any of that sort. That's a call that you can obviously take, but in general sense, it basically stands for number of times a person is actually exposed to a single ad. So that's basically what it is. If you have, or if you have a lot more like, let's say, a lot more jargons, please drop them in the comments. That's what I wanted to cover today. So let me just head back. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to cover for today. And if you have more jargons that you feel that it becomes difficult for you and you want to kind of explore them, just drop them in the comments. I will respond to them as and when I see new comments. All right, so thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next Tuesday talk.